complicated about hangouts for Horn.
How are the dogs looking tonight?
I mean, I know Bam Adebayo is having a typical Bam game where he just is dominating the fourth quarter.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, this is a pretty good line. 5-5 from the line's nice.
Yeah, you know, Bam does some things from like the line and his assist numbers. It's a lot to like.
Let's look at the last 30 days in the life of Bam.
You really need to look at the per 36s.
I like the percentages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's look at his per 36. Yeah, I got to get prepped on my Bam.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. It's like, you know, like 3 double-doubles in his last 5 games. I mean, we'll take it. Are we all here? It looks like Horn's here, but maybe muted.
I've heard no Horn.
I'm here.
Oh. There he is.
Still only 0.8 blocks per 36. What's that about?
No, I was looking earlier today, and his steals and blocks were up over 1. I thought it was like 1.3 blocks.
Who are we talking about?
Bam Adebayo.
Oh, I see what I did here.
Who are we talking about?
You know who.
Yeah, okay. I like that better.
Yeah, dude, he's like a moon. What do we call the Moon Society? He's like Moon Society.
Yeah, well, I mean, Spoelstra's definitely going to start playing him 36 minutes, so these are relevant.
Every time Whiteside is quoted in the press, he's basically it's like Bam envy. He's like, "Oh man, like it was clear to me when they drafted a center with a lottery pick that I was going to be losing out on minutes. I just didn't realize that I was never going to play a fourth quarter again." Whiteside's like Eeyore these days. He's very upset about the presence of Bam.
Yeah, all I know is when Whiteside goes away, he's going to go away fast. You know, like he's going to be good, and then suddenly he's going to be playing in Serbia, and then he's going to be retired.
I think he's already maybe gone away. I mean, the Bam revolution's already begun, right, Horn?
Well, that depends on what team he ends this podcast on.
Nice Van Vliet line.
Always. If it's 2018, it's a nice Van Vliet line.
And Torian.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't talk about any of the other dirty dog lines tonight.
So I have an idea. I have an idea for us for tonight.
Okay.
So are we recording? Oh, I guess we're recording everything, right, Les?
Right.
All right. So Peskin hears all this. Well, anyway, Peskin, don't put this part in. We should hype a LSL guy that none of us are into, like throughout the podcast.
Yeah, that's a good.
We should just like keep making like casual references to like how excited we are about some particular like 2018 or 2019 draft guy who none of us have any interest in, just to like gin up some league-wide interest.
Yeah, like it should be someone who's not going to go in the top 5, and we should talk about them like they're going to go in the top 5.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
someone
saying.
up.
Get somebody to like bite.
I mean, to me, well, I don't know. Maybe you guys see this one differently than I do. But I feel like Bull is a pretty good target there.
We don't. Whenever any of us think about Bull, Emmer's doing plenty to put him on everybody's radar screen. So I don't think Bull's the guy for this.
Okay. I mean, we could maybe do Shai Gilgeous Alexander just because his name's awesome, but he might actually be the steal.
No, I think we all actually like him too much.
Yeah, he's actually amazing.
Plus, Leslie, you got to leave me someone to get at 14, buddy.
Oh, dude, Shai is definitely not going to be hanging at 14.
Gabe and I spent some time talking about LSL guys today. I don't think we spent more time talking about anybody than Shy Gilgeous.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this much. My list only goes down to 13. Like, I couldn't find a 14th player worth drafting. And Shy is definitely on the list. So he's not, I don't think he's making it to you.
I mean, there's one I know that Gabe and I are both out on, and Lusk, I can't imagine you're too excited about this one either, but I think it would be a good candidate for this, which is Kevin Knox.
Oh, he's number 13 on my list. Barely made the cut.
Perfect. So he'll be there for you at 5 or 10.
That's right. Yeah, that guy sucks.
All right. So anytime we're talking about LSL guys and this year's LSL and like who, just sort of, subtly, casually mention Kevin Knox as your like throwaway example.
I just gotta pull up the Kevin Knox game log real quick so I can drop some.
Can we be real? What are the chances that this episode goes up before the LSL draft?
Kind of high.
Yeah, okay. Pesca will get it up within 2 days or so.
Oh damn! The Kevin Knox game log is kind of sexy.
Yeah, let's take a look at this.
Damn. I mean, let's just avert your eyes from the D columns.
I'm looking. I mean,
he has some. I mean, like that 34-pointer a few nights ago.
I mean, he got hot. He hit 5 threes.
And these are in minutes too. He is playing like 36 minutes a game.
Yeah.
He can score.
He has a little bit John Collins in him.
He has no John Collins in him. Oh, don't you besmirch the Baptist.
So in 31 minutes against Monmouth, he went 1 for 9 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3 with 7 turnovers.
Sometimes you push too hard against Monmouth. God, look at this garbage schedule. Look at all these shitty teams they played. Jesus. Okay, 34, yeah. All right, should we start?
Yeah. Wait, before we do, Gabe, what is the status of Vanderbilt as a program? I kept asking you all these Vanderbilt questions today, and you were dodging them. I assume you know something that I don't know.
Vanderbilt intel.
All right.
What you're finding them finishing high on people's
like when I was looking at all of these guys, when I was looking at all Lusky, as you know, I have a fetish for pedigree, and so I was looking at all of these guys like recruiting trail stuff, and like Vanderbilt was in it till the end on like every single one of these top guys, and snatched a few away from much better programs.
I don't even know who their coach is right now.
Pardon?
Who's their coach?
I don't know. I mean, look, I kept waiting for you to give me like the 3 most important things I needed to know about Vanderbilt, and you never did.
I think what we need to have happen is have like the next 3 best uncommitted high schoolers all commit to Duke next year, so that like none of those guys they all end up robbing from each other. You know what I mean?
I'm not listening to you. I'm looking up Vanderbilt basketball.
Has it ever happened before that the 3 top recruits in the country have all gone to the same college? I guess Michigan.
Has Calipari never pulled that?
Yeah, I feel like it would have been a Kentucky team of the last 5 years if it's happened. But I don't know, like Wall and Boogie and someone maybe.
Oh, you know who Vanderbilt's coach is? That's interesting.
Who?
Bryce Drew.
Oh. All right, well, that's enough of that.
Should we start?
Yeah.
Any questions about the rundown?
No, we can wing it.
Does anybody know what episode we're up to?
No chance.
What's the site that we Buzz Sprout? Hold
on. Yeah,
talk amongst yourselves.
It is Buzzsprout.
Yeah. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment.
Hold on. It says, so Auto for Durant edition was season 3, episode 5. So this is season 3, episode 6.
Cool. Hello and welcome to season 3, episode 6 of the Collier Pod. I am your host, David Horn, owner of the 13th and climbing stagnant Jabberwocks. With me are co-hosts Gabe Gold, owner of the. Don't say it, Gabe. I'm going to look because I don't want to. Sometimes you've been in first lately. You've been in fourth lately. I don't want to get it wrong. Owner of the third place Chupacabras. Welcome, Gabe.
Thank you.
And with us as well, owner of the ninth place in, I don't know, climbing, Dirty Dog
yeah.
Nation.
We're coming. We're going to find our typical spot in the standings, nestle in around 7th.
Good. Well, it's been a long time since we last potted. I think I think there's a lot of reasons why we haven't potted in a while. One of which was the flu that I came down with last week. But I think the more central factor has been the weirdness of the UAFBL arms race, which is going to be one of the topics, the main topic that we cover tonight. So let's get right into that. And it's good that we have one buyer and one seller from the arms race. I'm curious to hear from both of you about your unique perspectives on what happened. We've never had an arms race like this. I think the most interesting sort of superficial feature of it has been that it all sort of happened at once. Most of it on January 31st and February 1st. And in any case, in a very condensed, sort of on a very condensed timeline. And then there are some other features as well that I want to talk about in terms of, what the kind of conventional wisdom is now for buyers and for sellers, and what kind of the league thinks about arms race deals. But let's get into the timing first, which I think is so unusual. Lusky, is it strange to you that it's now February 13th, and for the most part, the arms race is over?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a very different year in terms of the arms race. I think it was the most polarizing year we've had so far in terms of people knowing where they stood earlier in the season, and there was almost like a waiting game and a domino effect, and it all kind of happened very quickly. And now there's it kind of looks like a kind of dark, empty space, the trading environment.
You, Lusky, were one of the most important figures in this, and one of the ways in which you were important was you could have, and talked about for a time, we can talk more about this later on, keeping your powder dry and waiting. I mean, Durant's Durant and Davis is Davis, and so there was no real impetus for you to trade them in January or early February. Briefly, as a seller, why did you feel like that sort of late January, early February was the time to act?
Well, I mean, so I did. I think that. Well, there were two reasons. One is that Durant and Davis is Davis, but they're both of those players carry risk. Both of them have had injuries. Davis more so than Durant, but Durant last year, and I didn't want to be bit by one of those and end up with nothing. As it turns out, I got potentially worse than nothing out of the second deal, but that was just bad luck. And so one of it was like I just didn't want to have to worry about the injury risk, and then secondarily, I mean, I had done some analysis on who the best available keepers were, and in my eyes, there were only like 4 or 5 players that were worth trying to flip my guys, and I needed to make sure I got 2 of those. So the first domino fell with the Jokic deal when Chris Jones traded Harden and Whiteside for Jokic, and so my list went down. And I said, okay, well, I really need to prioritize getting the guys that I feel like are the top of that list. And that was really what kind of motivated me to make a move. Not to mention that I also feel like the buyers came around more, and basically came to terms with what I was asking for when I set out to flip those guys.
Well, of course they did. I mean, this was the year that the sellers fought back.
Right.
Gabe, what did you I think one of the things that you and I had talked about prior to all these deals going down, about the Chupacabras and your strategy was like, who was going to be the first to act, which buyer was going to be the first. And what was the chain reaction going to be that first action set off? Say a little bit about what you thought the pros and cons were of acting early rather than late as a buyer.
Well, first of all, I think this is just a really on the timing. It's an especially interesting season from pre-draft to now, from like a sociological perspective. You laid out all these trades that we had, and as you said, they happened on January 22nd, and then January 31st and February 1st. But you could almost kind of like feel it palpably in the air, and you kind of knew that, for instance, it wasn't going to happen on a weekend. Like, I believe those were maybe both Tuesdays or early to midweek. You would just feel it coming around in the Slack conversations you'd have, and it almost felt like the arms race was being controlled by a mythical third party that it wasn't actually involved in the deals. So what was your question? Why was it advantageous to start early as a buyer?
How are you thinking about like why so really, I mean, and we can talk about, I want to talk about a lot of these deals in particular, but just to sort of get ahead of ourselves a little bit, Phil buying Kawhi was a move, but Kawhi was sort of damaged goods. I mean, this really started, I think, as Lusky said, on January 22nd with Emmer buying Harden. And I know you were looking at Harden and looking at other deals around that time, but like, where were you on? So that was January 22nd. Where were you on January 12th? Like, where were you on January 2nd?
I was ready to go, and I knew that Peskin was the only one who was ready to deal, and his guys weren't my guys. So I just had to kind of wait for the seal to be broken, and it became clear that Jones was going to be the first guy ready to sell. He approached me about a Booker Harden deal before I approached him even, and that was very intriguing. And then he and I came all the way down to the line. Had a deal had as close to as been agreed to as could be, and Emmer ended up winning the day.
What was the deal?
It was something like Booker. What do you remember? What it was? I think it was Booker.
I don't remember
$3.
I don't remember it exactly, but I don't remember it exactly. You'll remember it better than I do.
It was something like Booker, a slot, and $3, and no Whiteside. And he had been quoting me, I think $20 for Whiteside and $25 for DeRozan at the time. So I immediately was fine taking those out of the deal. And just focusing on Harden.
So Lusky, I mean, one of my, so I agree, Gabe, like the sociological, view is interesting, and it did feel like there was kind of a momentum, within the league, around this time. Lusky, do you get the sense, I think it's, to me, it's obvious or self-evident that, the most managers in the league are in agreement about the way that the arms race should go, and when is the right time to acquire a blue chip player? When is the right time to decide that when you're in 6th place or 7th place, you're not going to be able to make a run? What more or less what kind of value you can get. I see all of this in the condensed timeline as evidence that we are we're all doing actually pretty well in the UAFBL economy as it exists, and I think that I could see and I don't want to get into a debate about reform. I could see that cutting both ways in that debate, though. From my perspective, it seems like the league, I think, at least as of February 13th, all of the buyers and sellers feel like they did well or did okay in the arms race, and sort of took advantage of the league economics such as they are. Lusk, do you think that this is evidence of sort of market efficiency or market inefficiency?
I guess you could describe it as market efficiency. I think you're right. I think everybody kind of looks and says, "Oh, okay, I did okay." I mean, there's a few people that probably feel great, but for my own personal opinion, and this is honestly not a commentary on reform, but I actually think that it was kind of a little bit boring, right? It was a little bit boring that
Yeah.
like for the most part, like you knew who the buyers
Sort
were.
of sort of perfunctory. It also felt sort of perfunctory.
Yeah,
Yep.
like to me, the only exciting thing happening this year, as someone who like hasn't really been competing from the get, right? The only exciting thing happening about this league is Phil's team. That Phil is going for it, right? Like I love that. That like a guy that had no business putting his foot on the gas is putting his foot on the gas. And I just wish that we had a little bit more of that. That like there was a little bit more of a like fluidity between like you know. Like in years past, I think we've been critical of teams that like put their foot on the gas, but then decide later that they're actually going to tank and like. But there's something like
It's
more
become
real
pragmatic now. You almost feel like you have to.
yeah. Like I just wish there was like a little bit more of like, hey, every. I was thinking about this earlier today. I wish there was a little bit more of like that sense. You know, like when you're watching football, there's always like some guy who's watching who says like, you know, the stats say you should always go for it on fourth down, no matter where you are on the field. And it's like, I wish we had a little bit of more of that in UAFBL, where like, no matter where you were in the standings, you just go, and then you can always adjust later on.
Right. So that's I think that's a great observation, and I think that's definitely happening to some extent in the league. I think it's hard to respond to that without going down the reform rabbit hole, but because the reason it seems to me that that's happening is because the conventional wisdom is that it's so hard to win the league. It requires such a sort of moonshot of elite assets that if you don't have and Bookbinder is a perfect example of this. If you don't have the assets to acquire all of those elite guys, there's just no point. And the odds of, if you're Bookbinder, the odds of being able to compete with Emmer's team and with Gabe's team, and then and with Beer's team, who had this great draft and had this very nice sort of complementary team that was clearly well built for a competitive season. Then what were you doing? Like, everything would have to break right. You would have to nail every deal. You'd have to avoid injuries, blah, blah, blah. And so I think the pro reform folks would point to Bookbinder's decision as being very logical in our league. And because it's a logical decision, that is an indictment of the league. And it sounds, Lusky, like you agree that if you want a league where somebody like Bookbinder, my gripe with Bookbinder personally is that he never puts his foot on the gas to the extent that he should. But in general, if you want somebody like Bookbinder in the situation that he was in this year to put his foot on the gas, then you're basically pro reform.
Yeah, I mean, he was basically the opposite of Phil. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with him because I've done that before. Remember, I mucked from first place, but he did the opposite of Phil this year.
Gabe, is there a case for?
It's simultaneously one of the most cynical and one of the most optimistic seasons of UFBL, because everything we've been talking about is so kind of rote and dirty feeling. And I don't know that any of us are thrilled to have bought the guys that we've bought. We just kind of felt obligated, like we were getting match made or something. But at the same time, we have both Glassby and Beer who have done it, kind of the natural way. And, Beer having gone all in on the arms race alongside me and Phil and Emmer, but Glassby just keeping it pure the whole way. And those both feel like, like they're from a different era, the kinds of competing that they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Like one could have imagined a version of this. I imagined a version of this season in which Chupacabras and Leonine Faces were, just lapping the field, and the best of the rest, whether it was Sorry for Parting or Cass City or whoever, just wasn't even close. And that's not how it's shaken out. And I think, what Emmer will say, and he's right, is that the degree of difficulty for those guys, having not made the LSL deals that you guys made, is so much higher.
So much higher.
And that's correct. But it's still nice that we have despite all of that, these two competitive teams who are in the mix with you guys. So it's for the
Plus
league plus Phil. That's right. So I had a couple specific questions I wanted to get into, and then a couple particular deals I wanted to scrutinize. Although I agree that the deals in and of themselves are a little perfunctory, but I think there's still some interesting nuggets to unpack. So my first question was, I wanted each of you to name one deal or one strategy or tactic that you would have done differently as a buyer and as a seller, respectively. So, Gabe, maybe you could go first. As a buyer, was there one deal or one strategy that you would like to sort of have back, or that you've sort of reconsidered once the dust settled on all of these arms race deals?
I would have moved immediately on to buying DeAndre right after my first deal.
Explain why.
Or right after my second deal, rather. I let it kind of sit. Jones had reached out to me and offered basically what the deal he ended up getting done with beer, and I expressed interest in it. And then after my deals, I was sort of exhaling and didn't immediately hop into the DeAndre discussion. And before I knew it, DeAndre was dealt. So I didn't have a chance to get him, which I really would have liked to have.
Lusky, why do buyers, as Gabe just described, feel this? I think it's very typical. This sense of like exhaustion after a deal, and this sense of wanting to sort of see how the dust settles before they make another deal. I was having a conversation, I think, with Emmer after one of his deals, where I was encouraging him to like keep his foot on the pedal and keep just like bam, 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 like make 3 deals before your competitors have even blinked. You don't usually see that in UFBL. Why do you think that is, Lusk?
I don't know. It's interesting you put it. I don't know why it's the case, but I definitely think that happens. I think there's almost like a poker metaphor here. Like, after you win a big hand, your instinct is just to like count your chips and see where you're at, rather than
totally
just like get aggressive and keep pushing. But I think that aggression would probably work out if someone, like if Emmer had just rattled off like the as many big deals as he could when he had, when he has all those chips, then there's an argument to be made that like he blocks them.
I forget when it might have been around the time that he did Harden. I think it was like right before he did Harden. He was like, he's like, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? And X, Y, and Z were all like huge deals. Like X was Harden, Y was one of the deals with you, but then, and I think at the time, I guess he couldn't. It wasn't mutually exclusive. He couldn't have done Harden and AD and KD, but he might have been able to get like Whiteside from Chris, plus AD and KD from you with Porzingis and Jokic. Plus he had like I was like, dude, just do them all at once. Like just like totally blind Gabe, totally blind beer. Shock and awe.
So first of all, DeAndre was the same day as it was on the 31st, along with like 5 other deals. So that affects things. And second of all, this year was different. Like the game reset, the playing field reset after every deal, and a different person was in like pole position, and it weirdly like made the decisions for us.
Yeah, in some ways it actually helped you, Gabe, right? Like Collins, at a certain point, Collins became like best available.
Yes, definitely.
That was actually one of the smartest moves, is that you flipped Collins for like 2 of the best players on the board.
Yeah, I mean, but again, there weren't many other options out there. I mean,
but there weren't many other options for Weeg. The point is there weren't many other options for Weeg either.
Yes, agree.
Lusk, how about you? I mean, Porzingis injury and aside, what might you have done differently as a seller this year?
I mean, I'm still feeling a little burned by the whole Porzingis thing, so I'm not really lucid enough to answer it. I mean, like I was pretty pleased with the 2 deals that I cut. I felt like I dug in and kind of held my ground right around where I thought I would on both of those. I mean, I guess in retrospect, like I could make the argument that like, so Jokic was my top target, and I could have offered more to get him, but I mean that the Jones deal, I wasn't going to beat that. Like, I think Emmer did the best deal he could have. for Jokic, and so I wasn't trying to beat that kind of offer.
I got the sense that you were. Tell me if I'm wrong. I got the sense from because I was talking more with Emmer than with you at the time. I got the sense that you were fucking around on cash and slots when it came to Jokic for I forget whether it was Durant or AD, but I mean Emmer did well there. I think in large part because he didn't have to give up a huge amount of cash or a slot to get Harden and Whiteside, and we can talk about that deal in more
I don't
detail
think
later. But
I mean Emmer would have to tell us. I don't really think it came down to the cash and slots. Like I lowered my cash and slots pretty considerably and gave him options. He had an array of options to get either AD or KD and deal me either Porzingis or Jokic. And so I mean I think that I gave him every opportunity to do that, but I think at the end of the day, his mindset was like, hey, two. The Whiteside element of that deal is really what swung it, right? Like he valued Whiteside a lot, and he probably should. And I wasn't, I just didn't have another second piece that I was willing to just kind of throw in.
yeah, let's talk about that for a sec. I am interested in your season overall.
Yeah, wait, can I ask this question? It's because it's of both of you. You guys took opposing rebuild viewpoints. I would love to hear you compare and contrast what your experiences have been like. Lusky going for the two big chips and Dave, you going for a bunch of small to medium sized ones.
I mean, I'd feel very differently about this if Zinger hadn't gotten hurt. Had Zinger not gotten injured, then I would feel pretty good about the tack that I took.
So I think the Porzingis injury is unfortunate and unlucky for sure, but is also within a range of unfortunate and unlucky things that were more likely to happen to you than to me based on the strategies that we pursued from the auction.
Well, I mean, sure, I traded for a guy that was under contract.
No, but like the odds that you were going to trade for such a guy, like so. I mean, and this is not a criticism because I think I've done a version of what you have done in the past. I like paid a premium for LeBron the year before I won and traded him for a bunch of shit. But the risk for you, and we talked about this, I think, if not on the pod, then separately around the time of the auction, was you were always going to be a victim of what was available to you in trades, at a certain period of time during the arms race. And this year, as you said at the top, there were only, 4 guys or whatever who were really worth you turning Durant and AD around for. And like, so obviously, any of them could have been injured and whatever. But of those guys, I mean, Chris Dunn was a multi-year keeper. If you like Chris Dunn, Otto was a multi-year keeper, but an expensive one. And query how much savings there are. And then you had Jokic and Porzingis who only have the 1 year left. And so it's just sort of a higher risk, even pursuing those guys who are great 1 year keepers. There's just more risk naturally in going after them. And then you have this sort of limited subset of guys that you can deal with. So that I think that risk always existed for you.
Yeah. I don't think that to me, none of this has to do with Zinger's injury. Zinger's injury is what makes the whole outlook bad. I mean, the reality is I'd be totally stoked about all of this if Zinger hadn't gotten hurt. Like, I think Booker and Zinger are both top 25 players. If I could go into next year with both of them under contract for, $80 all in, like that's pretty good. I'd be thrilled about that. But like to say that Zinger is more prone to injury, like I don't want Chris Dunn. I didn't want Otto at that price. And to say that like dealing for Otto, like had I dealt for Otto instead and Otto had gone out with a torn MCL, I wouldn't feel great about it either. I'd feel just maybe shittier about it, So I don't think, I mean, look, I think there's merits all different ways. I think there's less risk involved, honestly, the route that I took, because you took some shots. A couple of them panned out greatly for you, which is awesome. But mine should have been sure things were it not for a torn MCL or whatever the fuck it tore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's here's the thing. It's not fun to not participate in the arms race. Like, having Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell is great, and I'm really excited about it. But it sucks to just sort of like be hemming and hawing during the most fun part of the UFBL season. Um, and then I think there's like Height has some cool stuff happening on his team, for sure. But there was certainly a version of this year where all of Height's shot and Height's strategy isn't like radically different from mine. It's a little different, but wasn't radically different. There was a version where none of Height's shit hit, and he had nothing to show for the season. I don't think that's where he's going to land, but it was looking like that for a time. And that risk is that's the counter argument, I think, to the you've got limited options when you're trying to deal these blue chips. I think the counter argument is you're going to get caught totally with your pants down if you just try to take shots on the Brandon Ingrams of the world.
To be fair, he hedged with Conley, and then Conley got hurt, which was
right.
Pretty shitty.
Which also can happen. I mean, and that's what contributes to something like that. I don't know, Gabe. How does it look from your perspective?
Which one looks more appealing to me? I think they're both super viable. I guess I think that to your point, it is a little bit predictable about what you might get back if you do the Lusky strategy, and it might make sense just to look at who you predict will be out there on the market before you choose that strategy. I also think the market is possibly, and I think some people say obviously overcorrecting around those young upsidey guys to the extent that the contracts are all problematic, and you might be better off being able to do that picking and choosing because you at least can control what contract price you get.
Right. Here's what I really liked about your strategy, Lusky, and the reality is that it's not like, and you've done a good job with this, Lusk, but like, so you had Durant and Davis, and like there's enough fluidity and enough uncertainty in the rest of the league where you can find these other like what I was envious of was that you were going to get Jokic or Porzingis or Booker or Otto or whoever you got with your big blue chips, but then you had your fucking Terry Rozier and your Saric and your whoever the fuck else you had, Justin Holiday, whoever if you squint at, or maybe even if you don't need to squint, we're going to be a one or multi-year keeper. Like it doesn't preclude you from doing that with the other 14 roster spots. And I was thinking like Lusky could end up with those great elite keepers, plus a couple like interesting fringy keepers that aren't like that much different than the ones that I have.
So the reality is, Dave, that like what the only thing that I'm been out of shape about the Zinger injury is that it may represent like a $50 boat anchor that's literally like I'm beholden to that contract now because the injury cause doesn't get me out of it because there's not definitive answer, and that he doesn't play. Right. That's the only thing that pisses me off about it. Short of that, I'm actually pretty good. Like, even if you just took Porzingis off my team right now, like I could give you Porzingis right now for free. Right. And I feel pretty good about where I'm at. I got 5 slots.
Wait. Is that a
$425?
Wait. Is that a formal offer?
Sure.
You would trade me Porzingis, just the liability of Porzingis for free.
Yeah, right now. Formal offer.
All right, let me think about that. Go on.
So my point is, I feel pretty good about where I'm at. I got 5 slots. I got $425. I got Devin Booker. I got some shots in Saric and Rozier's coming around. Like you said, I mean, I still think I have a lot of good things going on. It just makes it a lot more difficult if I have a $50 anchor with a lot of uncertainty around it. Like at this point, I mean, the Knicks might. I don't want to talk you out of this deal that I just offered you, but the Knicks might do wise to just sit him out. But what if they don't report him as
right?
And so and that's the space I don't like being in. The fact that I may have just like basically burned $50 of a year when I really think that I could be competing, even if I'm not coming in with like who cares if I mean. I'm not threatened by like Lauri Markkanen and Jason Tatum for 3 years. Like I don't think that shit is going to be all that attractive.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that.
Like we just screwed up everybody's keeper prices so much this year that I frankly think that the attraction of Saric is better than a lot of those types of guys.
Can I ask you a question, Lusky? You earlier mentioned you think some sellers are super happy or some buyers are super happy. Other than Porzingis, was there one deal that struck you as particularly one-sided?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Whiteside plus Harden for Jokic deal is the one that I was referring to specifically.
Why? Explain why.
I don't think that anybody was offering two players of that caliber. I mean, I don't know what Whiteside's ranked, but like two players that are kind of worthy of that you can see as being like steady members of a contending team in exchange for one
No,
keeper.
it's like I think of it as like Harden is in that elite group with the guys that you had, Lusk,
Yeah.
sort of the top 5 group, plus like a legitimate, not a fringe, like a legitimate top 20 guy.
Yeah, it wasn't. We were talking about
Who happens to
Markieff Morris
specialize
or
in the
Will
most
Barton.
important stat this year?
What's that?
Who happens
Right,
to specialize
right.
in the most important stat this year?
Exactly. I mean, that's precisely the reason. I mean, he got his top 5 player, plus he got another player who's very good, and I don't think anybody was offering that. The second pieces that were involved. I mean, the best second piece in any other deal was like Blue Will, and that was attached to Bledsoe.
So
I mean,
well, so I want to. So before we move on from like the Dirty Dog Nation strategy, and I don't want to spend the whole podcast talking about our own shitty teams, but for your shitty team, like how much of an impediment was it for you in negotiations? And Gabe, I'm curious for your reaction to this, having negotiated with him, to not having great complementary pieces.
I mean, it wasn't an impediment to me.
Well, it was if it was for managers who needed to depth. I mean, right. So the challenge for Gabe in dealing Booker or for Emmer in dealing Porzingis is they're dealing top 20 players.
I will say this. It was very fascinating to me how, like, whenever I would receive offers from a contending team, like Phil was shooting me a lot of offers, like everybody would pick a different guy as like the second banana for my team. I was like, do I want each one more side?
Yeah, the Will Barton.
Yeah, no. Every Phil offer had Will Barton as the number 2, and I actually was like, why don't other people see this? Will Barton's amazing.
Gabe, why don't you answer this question, having acquired and now relying heavily on Taj Gibson?
Ugh. It was unfortunate, but there was nothing to be done about it. Like, just given the market, Taj happened to be actually pretty helpful as far as a 4th tier kind of a guy goes. But, the team that has Durant and AD, like, you got to be interested no matter what the other pieces are.
Yeah. So, right. So then the lesson is for managers next year who are thinking about how to rebuild, like, don't sweat not having the complementary pieces. Get the blue chips and let the buyers figure out which shitty depth pieces from your team they want.
Right. I mean, Lusky also happens to be good at holding the line typically, and was able to extract a pretty high amount of cash from both deals just because he's a good negotiator. So, if he had, I don't know, Al Horford or whatever, how much more could I have possibly given you for Al Horford? Like $6, $8.
Right.
No way, pal.
Right. Lusky's also good. Lusky's also good at hyping the Will Bartons and the Justin Holidays before the fact, so that like you come and think like, oh yeah, like Will Barton, maybe.
Lusky seems to really like
that. Yeah. Lusky has a lot of really positive things to say about Justin Holiday's season so far.
Royce O'Neal, guys.
Royce O'Neal single-handedly won the Jazz game last night. So next question is about what others did, not what you did. Gabe, you start. What was something in your negotiations with the sellers, maybe the non-Lusky sellers, that you were impressed by tactically? If you're able to answer the question.
That Bookbinder was able to keep, speaking of Horford and McCollum out of our deal completely. He just drew a hard line and kept me on the hook, even though debatably there was no one else interested in Westbrook. And similarly for Weeg, who drew the line of, we can talk Lou Will, but we can't talk Jimmy Butler, which was very frustrating for me, but admirable as tradecraft.
I mean, I think those guys. I don't know this, but my sense was that each of those guys was able to draw those lines because um, that you had to overcome something in marketing what you had to sell. It's right. It's not like you were coming with this sort of A+ offer for those guys. So I think either, but in both Weeg and Books would have like, I think each of them could have like lived with not getting what they got from you.
Totally, but also like we all have been sellers before and know that it's just not in their best interest to package too many guys up in one lopsided deal. Like it is smarter to split it into 2 or 3 deals if you can. And I just don't really have an argument for why you should go all in unless as you say, I have someone so good that it actually makes sense to do that, which I don't think that asset really existed this year, including Jokic.
Right. Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, to me, it's just like all of us, we see enough of these deals go down and we all just sort of internalize what, like, yeah, like you can like John Collins and you can like Jordan Bell and you can like whoever, but we all just sort of get that, like, you don't bend over backwards for guys like that. Yeah, you can give up some valuable pieces, you can give up some real pieces, but you're not going to like sell the farm. And I haven't gone back and looked at sort of comps or historically, but this just feels like one of those, we're all getting smarter and we're all just sort of internalizing the same lessons from sort of UFL precedent. Lusky, how about you? What's something that tactically a buyer who you interacted with, other than Gabe, did well that you were impressed by?
Yeah, so I think that there are multiple buyers who did this, but I think the key takeaway this year, and I don't know, I think it'll probably hold, is if the dynamic of the league continues such that there's such a stark contrast between buyers and sellers, that this year in particular is evidence that holding on to a second tier keeper, like waiting until the chips fall on the top prizes and then holding on to your second tier keeper is a really smart maneuver. Like when you look at what Bagley, Dunn, Aton, Collins ended up netting relative to the big guys, I actually think that the biggest the biggest home runs probably came in those swings. Like when you look at the return that Gabe got for Aton and Collins, like that's pretty massive considering that those guys are definitely a tier below like those top 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah,
I would say the same thing about the Bagley deal. I think to your point, Phil did that to the nth degree. He waited until he really basically had the last guy on the board and got a very nice package from T-Mac.
Yeah, and the fact is that just one other thought here is that I'm not picking on Books here, but the interesting thing is when he decided to sell, he was still kind of in the mix, right? He was in like 3rd or 4th. Is that right?
I don't know, fourth or fifth, probably.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is like he, it still would have been risky, but if he wanted to, one option for him is like, I mean, RHJ was kind of on that list. Plus, let's not forget that we're about to open up another little round here where there's a window after this weekend, after the LSL draft, and before. Yeah. The trade deadline, when there's suddenly a bunch of prospects that hit the market, and then Emmer's going to be able to deal Doncic or whoever he drafts, and you're going to be able to deal Kevin Knox or whoever you draft, right? Like, Kevin Knox will go sooner than that, but like, Bull or whoever, So I just think that'll be interesting to see, like when these new pieces come down, you're not completely out of bullets in the kind of new UAFBL with the LSL and everything.
So 2 things. First, it's Doncic, and second, let's talk about Phil's whole thing here. When I sent you guys the list of transactions this year, I color coded them based on who made the moves, and so Phil's are purple.
You didn't color code Pesk buying Swan again.
Well, I didn't color code the ones that didn't involve
No,
like an actual
Pesk should have had his own color because he made like two crazy moves here.
We're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about Pesk separately. That's one of my secret topics for today.
The Chris purchase is so amazing to me.
Let's talk
Maybe I can offer Wait, before we ship this podcast off to Pesk, I'll offer him a zinger offer.
That's actually be a really interesting trade. Bookbinder's really big on risk shifting, so that'd be a really interesting one for him to analyze.
When JP Morgan just takes over our league entirely.
So Phil, Phil's whole season is fascinating. So he was the first mover, frankly, and the last. And he mostly sat out the friend. I mean, he had one trade in that January 31st, February 1st stretch, although it was the last of them. And I'm just really interested in his whole approach. Like Lusky, I know you are too, and you alluded to it earlier. Like, what do you think his? Do you think this was strategic by Phil, or do you think that he was just sort of like feeling the wave as it passed under him?
What can you explain what feeling the wave means?
Like, did he say to himself, "Okay, I made a big, purchase for Kawhi and Kemba," and so this sort of goes back to what we were talking about before of like, oh, I'm gonna like count my chips and see what else everyone else does and sort of see how the market moves, as opposed to him thinking, oh, like if I just sort of sit this out, like I'm gonna make my move and I'm not gonna be able to be in for Durant.
No, Phil has been one of the most active buyers all along. I mean, I don't think that he, and I don't think that he should have like just waited on his heels. I think he's been pushing Bagley the entire time, and he has been from from early on, even before the Kawhi deal went down. I think he has stated like I'm a buyer. Like he knew that he was gonna go for it and felt like he had enough kind of chips to play in the game. So I don't think, I know for a fact he wasn't sitting on his heels because he was aggressively pushing Dunn and Bagley. But I do think that in the end he did quite well for those guys. Like, no, he didn't get Durant or whatever, but arguably like he got a lot more depth. Like his team is maybe deeper than anybody.
He got Horford, CJ McCollum, Clay, Drew Holiday, and Millsap when he's healthy, basically for nothing. And
Trayvon Duval.
Right. And he hedged on the LSL piece. I forgot about that. Like Dunn. How did you evaluate Dunn when you were comparing him to like, I don't know, Otto, and I guess Otto is the only comp because clearly Booker's a better keeper. But like, how did you think about Dunn as a keeper?
Well, that was really the downside for Phil in my I liked Dunn, and I thought that his stats were kind of of the type that I normally jump on, right? Like he had 6 steals numbers, and his kind of stock was rising because he was putting up these like near triple double lines pretty consistently for a while. But the problem with Dunn was primarily that you just don't trust the Bulls, and especially given that there was the LaVine X factor. So the majority of the time that Dunn was blowing up and that Phil was pushing him, LaVine was out, and so you just couldn't trust the situation. Now LaVine came back, and Dunn was still pretty good, but like was maybe just a different type of player. Phil would argue he was a better type of player because he got to be a little bit more efficient. But yeah, I mean, personally, I still think he was like a tier below. I mean, I had this sheet where I was kind of putting people into categories, and I thought that like Embiid and Jokic were in a league of their own, and then you got like Zinger and Booker who were tier 2, and then all the other guys, meaning like Otto, Beal, and Dunn, were all kind of in this other category of guys that I didn't find to be huge savings.
Yeah, I think I reached the same conclusion on Dunn, and it's something you told me once when during one of my Terrence Jones infatuation periods, which is like, I think you said to me like, do the Rockets
There's
really
so many to choose from?
Right. Probably maybe during the first Terrence Jones crush. Like, do the Rockets really give a fuck about Terrence Jones, or is he expendable? And the answer, of course, is that he's expendable. And I feel the same about Chris Dunn. And I think I said to various people in the league that, how surprised would you be if the Bulls draft a point guard this summer? How surprised would you be if the Bulls trade for Kemba Walker right now? How surprised would you be if like Chris Dunn is not, is like the sixth man of a sort of middling team in a year or two, and everybody said like, yeah, I wouldn't be that surprised. And it's just so it's hard to it's not to say that Dunn's not a good keeper or won't be a good keeper, but it's hard to make that your guy when others are comparing him to Devin Booker and Kristaps Porzingis. Gabe, did you sense from any of the sellers that you were dealing with that they were taking? Maybe it was just a feint and some bullshit that they were treating Dunn as comparable to Booker. I think I got the sense that that at least some of the sellers were at least suggesting that they were, but that might have been total bullshit.
Yeah, the ones I was talking to didn't seem overly enamored with Dunn necessarily, though it's a very eye of the beholder thing. So guys I own, similar to Lusky's second best piece, like different guys really prioritized Ayton versus Bell versus Collins on my team. And like Weeg clearly loved Otto in a way that I think the other sellers didn't. And I think that was a really good opportunity for Beer to get a great package for that. Like, I just think all the guys beyond the top tier were pretty eye of the beholder.
Yeah. So the last point I want to cover, and I'm glad we haven't gotten too into it before we move on from the arms race, is the Kansas City Redhawks, who are sitting now in, I have to pull it back up, are they in fourth place? And if so, not back by too much. Right now they're 5 points back on Sorry for Partying, and I know that both Sorry for Partying and Kansas City have played a lot more games than Leon on Faces and Chupacabras. But Gabe, he's got $30. He's got 3 slots. He's got Josh Jackson. He's got Bradley Beal. I think the prospects of a red wedding this year are, I don't want to say that they're low because we've had them the last 2 years, but it's hard to see where that red wedding's coming from. In any case, how concerned are you about Kansas City Redhawks?
Concerned. They're awesome and impressive, and not only does he have those things that I don't think you mentioned Drummond. Like, Drummond is an incredible chip. That guy, his stats are just like 3 guys' stats added together. It's insane. And I'm just fascinated moving from sociology to psychology. Like, I'm very interested. I would love to know what Glassby is thinking right now, and how he thinks about the arms race, and how he thinks about the market, and how he thinks about his plans for the Redhawks. I really have no idea.
Lusky, what the fuck, man? What is Glassby doing? Like, I've sent him an offer every day or every other day. I've been trying to convince him that he needs Davis Bertans because he needs to make up threes and needs a center eligible threes guy. And I would say that he rejects the offer. I started at like $3 and I've been coming down every couple of days, but he rejects the offer if not within 24 hours and within 36 hours. So he's constantly checking and responding to UFBL communications. He's checking his team. He's not out of the loop.
You're confused at why he's not paying you cash for Davis Bertrands? Is that the question?
No, that's not the part I'm confused about. That's not the part I'm confused about. The part I'm confused about. I'm not confused about anything. I'm curious about like what do you think he's doing in UFBL? Like, he's got the $30. He's got the rest of us use those assets to try to improve our teams. Like, what's he doing?
I want to think that he's being strategic about this, and that he's listening to this podcast, and he is thinking about, what's the best take that I can get for Beal down the line, or whoever it may be down the line, right? I want to think that that's what he's doing, and that he's going to stick it to all these guys, because everybody knows that we want for Beer or Cassidy to win this thing because of the stupid DSJ or Lonzo Ball trades or whatever, right? That goes without saying. But,
an open secret that everybody's rooting against Gabe and Emma.
right. Open, and I traded with both those clowns. So, but
and we swore not to trade with you, and then here we are. We both
exactly. Never trade with the dirty dogs. So that's what I want to believe. What I have this sinking feeling, however, that Glaspie just believes in his heart of hearts that Beal is the secret to unlocking his team's championship, and he'll never move him. Because
I thought you were going to say that he believes in his heart of hearts that DJ Augustin and Kyle Anderson and Joe Harris were the keys to just that he's got it all perfectly.
Yeah. Well, that too. I mean, that too. I just fear that Glaspie doesn't want to partake in the nonsense, and is such a purist that he won't even engage in the winning side of a red wedding if it was offered to him.
Right. What are the chances he's an ideologue? What if he doesn't want to win the league unless it's in the right way in his mind?
On his own terms.
Political statement of sorts. Not in a douchey way, in a Glaspie way. Yeah. What if this is?
This is sad to say, but he's basically the Jim Harbaugh of UFL. Yeah, I don't know what he's thinking. Gabe, I think that's part of it. He definitely doesn't like the nonsense. He definitely doesn't have time for quibbling over Slack about how much he's gonna pay for fucking Jordan Bell. That's not his game. But he also, it's not like he hasn't made moves in the past. He has made moves in the past, and he has been completely silent this year. So his team's good, and he.
While we're here, can I just formally call myself an idiot for taking the Larry Nance pick lightly in 2 podcasts ago? I'm an idiot.
Are you? I mean, is Larry Nance?
I don't know.
Why is that? Is Larry Nance good?
Larry Nance is amazing.
I think he's pretty. He's pretty good, and I think in retrospect, it was at very least a solid use of the topic.
Larry Nance is fine. I don't think the apology or the self-deprecation is necessary. But there it is. All right. Anything else before we move on from this topic?
Just hoping there will be no red wedding this year, and if I end up selling in red wedding, you can throw this in.
Wait, why does Glaspie have Terrence Jones on his team? Is he hoping for a Terrence Jones for Davis Bertrand's deal?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because every offer that I've made to him with Davis Bertrand has been Terrence Jones.
He should probably just make that deal on its face without the cash, though. Maybe.
I mean, so it started at $1 plus $3 Y2AF. Then it went to $2. Then it went to $1 Y2AF. The most recent version of it was Davis Bertans for Terrence Jones and a 2021 LSL pick swap, which he rejected.
Wait, can you even do that?
Next, yeah, it's a good offer. It's a good offer.
I don't think
Davis
you can do
Bertans
that.
Why can't you do that?
I don't think you can trade next year's pick swaps, can you?
You can do whatever you want, dude. The next category is did you guys do this or no?
No. Oh, do what? Oh, no, we'll skip that.
All right, skip that. All right. Next category is the next segment on the podcast is who I'm embarrassed I don't know the answer to this. Who is responsible for the LSL bot?
I wrote these.
Oh, you wrote them.
Yeah, so I'm not going to participate. You guys can talk about it, but I wrote the lines, and then Amish
I thought they were me. I thought Amish did.
No, I wrote them, and then Amish decides to post them each one 7 times a day.
I don't mean to criticize the technology. I'm really pleased that it exists. So the redundancies and the repetitions are fine. All right, Gabe, let's do it. We don't need to rank them, but so the segment is I wanted to first, Lusky, thank you for writing them. They've been a pleasure. Thank you for setting up the bot.
At least one of them is going to be left on the cutting room floor because I gave these to Amish. I had written like 18 of them or something, and I gave these to Amish like a long ass time ago when he said he wasn't going to have time. But then he sat on them until we got closer, right? Because he wanted to take down. And one of them, I guess I wrote one more than we had days remaining.
All right. Well, that's fine. And now that I know that you've actually written them, I don't really want to rank them or say which ones I liked.
No, why not? I want to know. I mean, a bunch of them are terrible, but.
Gabe, which has been your favorite one? My favorite one was the Amish one, actually, that he accidentally picks Grayson Allen. That just struck me as funny. Yeah. Gabe, any of them tickle your funny bone?
I like the Peskin drafting the first female SL player.
Oh, that was good.
Oh, what about Glassby drafting Larry Nance the third?
That's good too.
Yeah.
The
Phil one was also good. The Phil one was good.
It was true to spirit, and like I like falsely accusing Height of being like the protocols of the Elders of Zion of UAFBL. He would never do such a thing.
Right. I also like that every time somebody gets like for Heights and for Weegs and for a few of the others, the manager who is being done dirty by the bot. The response on Slack is like responding directly to the bot rather than responding to Lusky. So like all the responses are like bad bot. Oh, boo bot.
Yeah, there's a lot of commentary. We should. Yeah.
We should have more automated. We should have more automated messaging.
Exactly. Actually, the very first bot that went out, it turned out to be a little bit. It was a little bit too much of an oracle here. Lusky trades AD for what will inevitably be a worthless LSL pick. Well, it wasn't a worthless LSL pick. It was just a worthless player.
Yeah.
Wait, Dave, are you going to take this offer before he offers it to Peskin? I feel like we should get into this.
Oh wait, no, we have a real offer we have to discuss.
Yeah. Well, do we have anything else to do first?
Yeah, I told you, Horn. I want to figure out a way that we can swap LSL picks this year.
Oh, dude, did you read my fucking rundown?
It's on the rundown.
Oh, it's
on the fucking rundown.
It's last on the rundown.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Goddamn homework, Lusky.
No, it was in like tiny print. It looked like it's
in the same size print.
It looked like your illegal boilerplate shit from Wilbur Hill.
It's in Times New Roman. 12 font, dude.
Wait, let's fold the two together and push them to the end. Push them to the end of this. What do we have first?
I was going to do a whole thing about Slack, but we'll just skip that, I guess, and just go to the. Gabe, explain. Mitch. All right, Mitch. Does Mitch listen to the pod? I think he does. Mitch, we all love you, and we're debating this thing, and it has nothing to do with you. Gabe, what's Mitch? So this is like Mitch neutral. We love Mitch. Gabe, what are your issues with going to 15 in general?
I don't have any strong issues about going to 15. I haven't heard any Mitch throwing Mitch out of the equation. I haven't heard any arguments for why people want to go to 15. Obviously, if we go to 15, and I'm basically fine with it, Mitch would be the number one candidate and someone I would wholeheartedly approve of. I don't know if this is appropriate for the pod, but I think it's worth discussing if we're going to lose a manager in the next year or two, how that comes into play as well.
So a couple points in response. One, I've always been a proponent of expanding to 15, to 14, to 15. And this is not meant to be like the sort of authoritative defense of a 15-team league, but in general, I've always thought that what's cool about UAFBL is how hard it is to win and how competitive it is, and playing in a 15-team league where like look how shitty the waiver wire is right now, and then going another 15 deep into that, or another 60, however big our rosters are, 16 deep into that. and all of those players mattering, and how like your fourth best player is actually only the 60th best player in the league. Like all that shit, I think is cool. Makes UFBL competitive, makes it hard, makes it challenging, makes it interesting, makes it fun. More teams, more strategies, more ways to skin the cat.
Is there a maximum number of teams you would accept? Would you want to be in a 22 team league?
Well, the Constitution, our Constitution sets 15 as a limit and requires a constitutional amendment to change that. So this is it. Like the 15 is max out, and that's, I think, by design. I think that's sort of the most. I think at a certain point it gets a little silly, and I think past 15 is where it gets a little silly. I can imagine the case for 16, 17, 18. But that's why we have the Constitution limit set where it is, because I think if we want to go past that, we have to have a real debate about it. But going from 14 to 15, to me, just makes a competitive league even more competitive, and that's why I'm into it.
That's completely fine with me. I don't have a strong.
Lusky, any views? Lusk, honestly, my biggest issue with 15 is sleeping accommodations. I never want to be in the middle trundle bed in one of those back rooms at the ranch. That ruins the weekend.
So I'm even more kind of liberal on this point than others are. Like I'm cool with 15. I'm cool. Look, I'm cool with 6. I'd vote to do the amendment to take the 16 if we found a 16th great manager. Like, to me, it's like, look, there's a finite number of individuals on the planet that meet our criteria, and Mitch is so obviously one of those that it's a no-brainer. And I frankly kind of like the Wild West effect that happens when we add a manager to the league, and it's like, the sky is falling, slots are worth $33 or whatever happens. Like it's cool, like whatever. So I'm not concerned about any effect. I mean, the only consideration that we might make, in my opinion, is we may think about if we want to adjust the overall roster size, or this may create more waves, but consider even dropping one of our util slots potentially and only starting 9. I mean, there's a lot of tax we can take if the concern is around the player pool.
Right.
But in terms of like the cash flow and the auction prices and that kind of stuff, I like, what, we change so much year to year as it is. Even without Mitch in the league, you guys would still be probably spending like far too much money on like Bam Adebayo.
All of that is completely true, and I, like, as I've said from the start, I'm going to vote in favor. I'm just glad to hear your arguments on in favor of it, because I irrespective of Mitch, because I hadn't really heard that before. What about the second part of my point?
Oh, that. So I don't think there's any reason to talk about that right now.
Okay.
Sleeping arrangements?
No, contraction.
Oh, yeah. Let's not.
Yeah. So the last category.
Should we tell back into that?
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Nobody listens to this anyway. So the last category,
except Mitch, who's going to hate me forever.
The last category is LSL pick swap negotiation.
Yeah,
Lusky, you proposed to me let's just walk through it on the pod. You make your proposal. I will respond with my sort of knee-jerk reaction to what consideration I might. Go ahead.
So look, I really want Kevin Knox on my team. So I reached out to some people that were like in the top 6 or something, because I feel like if I'm in the top 6, then I'm pretty certain I'll get Knox. So I reached out and said, hey, is there an opportunity where I could like throw you a player and I trade my number 10 pick for your number 5 or 6 pick or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So you were one of the recipients of that. And
wait, did anybody but me express interest in
because the reality is the other guys, I think most of the others in that category are
Some of them are buyers. They
Or
need
buyers, and so what they're banking on is like drafting Doncic and then flipping him for like another Kevin Durant that we don't know about.
Right, that's right. So I know Emmer is one. I know Beer is in the top 4. I think who else? Is there one other? I mean, Gabe, you don't have a top 6 pick.
Sure don't.
Hold on, I'll get it up here.
I'm just curious why other non-competitors wouldn't have been interested in that.
I did ask Amish, who I think was 7, and Amish just didn't think there was anyone that piqued his interest. He doesn't.
I mean, but that's okay. Okay, interesting.
So Pesk is in that.
I mean, 5. So I'm 5 and you're 10, and that's a big gap, man.
But here's the point: is that you and I both know that you will probably do better with the 10 pick than you will do with the 5 pick.
Well, I think I'll do well wherever I am.
Why, Lefty? What's your argument there?
Well, I think that like it's only natural. Like so here's the thing is that like it's a weird thing. Like I don't think we've really mastered the LSL dynamic yet, because the problem is it again will go linearly, where like the first 3 players to go are going to be the 3 players that are highest ranked that are not already owned in the 2018 draft, and then the next 3 players are going to be like the top 3 players from the 2019 draft, and it's like, but those players are going to be $31 in year 1, and then they're going to like fuck up their shoulder and forget how to shoot. So the top NBA picks aren't really the best LSL picks. The best LSL picks are going to be like Kevin Knox, right? Like a guy that ends up getting drafted 9th, ends up being a stud for his team. Like they're going to blow up, right?
Well, I think Kevin Knox's shoulder is made out of titanium, so I don't think we have to worry.
That's what I'm saying. You're going to be able to keep him for like $7, and then it'll be like a 3-year keeper, no problem.
Why do you? So if I hear what you're saying, why do you? If that's true, then why do you want to move up to 5?
Oh, I'm just kind of jerking around. I'm itching to make a deal now that I'm out of the arms race.
You itching to make a deal is like your that's like when Trump says something that gets him in trouble, and then like the press secretary comes out and is like, oh, he was just kidding, like you saying like I'm just fucking around trying to make a deal is like it's like what you say when you don't have a reasonable defensible like argument
so the reality is like I last year I think I was like the 13th overall pick, right? Yeah, last year I was 13, and this year I'm 10, and I don't want to have to like I don't like I have a prioritized list of players that I like, and I don't want to I would obviously like to have as many of those players available when I pick, and so I'm looking to move up, even if it's like just a couple of spots.
All right, so so you proposed it to me, I was interested in the idea. I like the idea of LSL pick swaps and finding the right consideration to make it worthwhile. And
guys, you owe it to the league to make a deal here. I'm just going to say
I owe it to the league? To
you both do.
Why do I owe? I don't know shit to anybody.
We've all been talking around the idea of making a deal live on air for too long. We need to make something happen.
Oh, I don't know that. No. So my first reaction to this, Lusk, was Bam as the player that I would want, which another upside player with keeper potential to offset the delta between the player I would get at 5 versus the player I would get at 10.
Let me. I do want to ask you this: Does Bam represent a better keeper prospect next year than any LSL pick outside of Dennis Smith Jr. from this year?
That's why.
I'm asking you to
talk about. That's why it's such an interesting thing to talk about. It gets at the heart of all of these UAFBL debates that we've been having, and the nature of Bam as a lottery ticket versus the number 5 versus Kevin Knox as a lottery ticket. Let's just say that. Let's say you mentioned Kevin Knox several times, so let's just use Kevin Knox as an example. Is Bam a better prospect than Kevin Knox? I mean, the downside with Kevin Knox or whoever gets taken at 5, as you've said, Lusky, and I think this year is proving this to be true. The only getting the guy for 2 years after that first LSL year. And that first LSL, I mean, look, as I've said 100 times, I designed this knowing that for the most part, these rookies were going to suck. There were not going to be a lot of kickers, right? Top 60 guys who get the kicker, and that most of these guys wouldn't be worth their keeper price. And that has proven to be true. I think arguably none of these guys have been worth their keeper price, except Jonathan Isaac and De'Aaron Fox. And then only having 2 years to tack on is shitty, and it makes Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell and all these guys look way better by comparison. These guys who aren't tainted by the rookie scale. So all of that's true. And Bam can be kept for 3 years. I get that. The problem with Bam just is that he's not that good. So sell me on Bam, because I don't. I like Bam, but I don't see it.
According to the Palm Beach Post from 1 week ago, there's only 2 players on the Miami Heat roster that are untouchable. Do you know who they are?
Dwayne Wade.
I'll give you a hint. The first one. I'll give you the first one. The first one. The hint is the first one is Josh Richardson. The second one is
Rodney Magruder.
No, sir. Bam Adebayo. I'm about to start reading some Adebayo quotes. It's amazing. Whenever Spoelstra talks about him, so here's a Whiteside talking about him. It's crazy because I'm turning around and all I see is a shadow. I see a shadow when we run off rebounds and blocks. I know if somebody gets past me, it's like a layup, and I'm looking and turning around, and like this guy is coming out of nowhere to block the shot. It's different because I've never played with anybody like that. Not on the court with him. That's him talking about.
So, yeah, he is. What's his rank on Yahoo these days?
No, his rank is not great.
What's it like? So he gets rebounds and he gets field goal percentage. Like, what else does he do?
Both of his percentages are pretty nice, actually, and his assist numbers from a center are quite good. So let's look. Splits. So he shoots 73% from the line, 55% from the floor. As a starter, he got 0.9 steals, 0.7 blocks, 1.1 turns. So he's like inching toward mid society.
Just like the problem is, there's a whole league full of like flyers like Bam, and I've already got a whole roster full of flyers like Bam. What my roster could use is Kevin Knox, is like somebody who might be the next great shooter in the NBA. And like, who's a wild card who people will be excited about, who I might be able to flip. Like, I've got a whole roster of Bams already, so I'm just not feeling it. If you were to sweeten the pot a little bit, I might be persuaded.
No, I think Bam is as sweet as it gets. I think Bam's pretty sweet. Bam is about after Saric on my team, after obviously Booker and Saric, like Bam and Rozier are my next two, like maybe lottery tickets. Everybody else kind of.
Rozier seems way closer than Bam right now, unless
right now because Smart's been hurt. But when Whiteside's hurt, Bam's numbers are crazy like this too.
Gabe, how do you think I should be thinking about this offer, such as it is?
I think I've already made my bias clear, which is just on getting a deal done at any cost. And I would just like to suggest that you incorporate Porzingis into this somehow.
That would be awesome.
That's a complicating factor.
So, hey, you wanted some convincing. All right, so in the last 5 games, these are three of the lines that Bam's had are 15 and 13 and 6 assists, thank you, with 0 turns. How about 18 and 10 with 2 blocks?
I want to know which of those games did Whiteside play in? And which has he played in all those games?
Okay, so the first one was against Philly. Bam and Whiteside started together in that one. Olynyk's been out.
Okay.
So the next one is against Orlando, 18 and 10 with 2 blocks and a steal. Again, Bam started alongside Whiteside. And And Spolster's been making a point of that, how he needs to get the minutes together. And Whiteside said he likes that too, because he doesn't like sitting out in the fourth quarter like he always does when Bam's on the court.
Who else do you have on your rest?
Like Jordan
besides Royce O'Neal?
Clarkson, Austin Rivers.
No.
Whoa! Jordan Clarkson might be awesome for the rest of the season now.
I know. You're gonna be. I'm probably gonna trade him for your LSL pick, Gabe.
I mean,
what an achievement that will be.
If I want you to include $2 plus $2 Y2AF.
No.
Yeah. And then I'll do it.
Yikes! Heck no.
What would I need to throw back from my side to make that work for you?
The $2 business.
$4 total over the next 2 years.
That's like
this will be the last. And I'll sweeten the deal this way. You do BAM 2 plus 2 for the swap, and then I will vote against my own Y2AF renewal initiative.
No, I don't think
that's not a viable consideration.
Thanks, folks.
You can send me Julius Randle back.
I'll send you Fred. I'll send you Fred Van Vliet.
No, that's who you send back anyway. That guy's terrible.
I'll send you Luke Kennard.
No, I'll send you the $2 and 2 for Randall in the pick.
If you want Randall, I'll do the pick swap plus Randall for Bam. Forget the cap.
The number 10.
No. I'll do 10-5 swap.
Yeah.
You get Randall. I get Bam. But you have to throw in a slot.
No. Oh God. Heck no. Yikes. Yikes.
You can have Zach Collins.
No, that guy's terrible.
Dude, the Trailblazers love.
No, did you read the most recent comment?
Zach Collins is the most recent comment. Zach Collins is the BAM of the Pacific Northwest.
He actually kind of is.
The most recent, wait, where was it? Oh man, the most recent thing I read on him said the word putrid. I've never seen anyone be called putrid.
All right. I don't think we're close, man. But I don't think we're quite there.
Come on, you're too close. Push through.
I can't do it. Bam to me feels like another one of these guys, like all these guys I'm just rattling off, who are like, I like the idea of it, but like he's not going to be a fucking keeper.
Wait, you have a $1
$50
player on your roster that you think might be a good keeper? A $1 player?
Do I have a $1 player who might be a good keeper?
Yeah, like Bam is a $1 player. Yeah, like these guys, Kennard and Collins, like they're not a keeper. Like even if we had 8,000 keeper slots, those guys would not be keepers.
Wait, what if Lefty? Would you add the 2
criteria.
and 2 and Porzingis?
Wait, what's that?
Would you add the 2 and 2 and Porzingis?
Ooh, yeah, I'd do that.
Oh, yeah, dude, he's desperate to get off Porzingis. Porzingis for the Dirty Dogs is like Jordan Clarkson was for the Lakers a week ago. Like they'll take any offer they can get.
No, Horn, you should do that.
I've had a lot of bullet, but not enough to trade for Kristaps Porzingis without like looking at the report from his surgery today.
He was at the hospital for special surgery, man. They do great work there.
Yeah, they said it went well. They said it went well. They said it was successful.
I read it was I heard it was a putrid procedure.
We're so close, guys.
Gabe, broker. You need to broker this. Play a role.
Make it happen.
Is there some way that I can introduce some of my shitty assets to get this done?
Ooh, 3-way deal? Damn. Okay, you said you liked Clarkson. So we have a starting point.
I don't mind. Here's the thing. In principle, I don't mind trading down. And I like Bam, but I just don't think this is. I just don't think.
Teodosic. Wait. What if we figure out a way to get you Teodosic?
Not interested.
There was a profile about him in the New York Times. It was real low for the New York Times.
Did you read it?
Yeah. He eats breakfast sandwiches for breakfast, not cheeseburgers. Was the main
not
takeaway.
cheeseburgers.
Also, wait, I do have more notes from that. One, he was gobsmacked that Blake got traded, but was like delighted that his Slovenian national team roommate Boban got
Serbian, Gabe.
Wait, I thought they were Slovenian. Oh no, is Dragic Slovenian? Who's Slovenian?
I thought they were Serbs. You think they're Slovaks?
Whatever. No, never mind. His national team roommate is Boban, and Boban was described in the article as quote fast talking, which really was not an adjective I expected to be applied to Boban.
So Slovenian, the only active Slovenian in the NBA is Dragic.
Okay, so I was right about that.
Dragic.
Bino Udrih is a Slovenian. Primoz Brizek.
Milos and Boban are Serbs.
You're right.
Rasho Nesterovic.
Well, they're Serbian roommates.
I think we're ready to move on.
Wait, guys, Anthony Randolph is listed as Slovenian. That doesn't seem right.
Is Amare listed as Israeli?
Probably.
Lusk, we're close, man.
I know. I can't believe you're bailing, dude. This was
like
your idea.
Sweetener. Find a little sweetener. No, this is your idea.
No, this was your idea. You're the one that threw out. You went there on Bam, and I was like, why do we always have to?
This is the only guy that makes sense. Throw in a little sweetener, and we can make this work. Find something.
I mean, you could twist my arm and maybe get like Clarkson out of the deal.
Hold on.
What about Moutier? What about recent Jabberwock Emmanuel Moutier?
Oh, Moutier. Yeah, you love Moutier.
What has he done so far? He had a double-double.
He had a double-double on his first game.
I know.
Yeah. I guarantee you he's Phil's favorite point guard on the Knicks.
His first game as a Knick was amazing. He 14 and 10 with no defense and bad shooting. And his second game as a Knick, he also had bad shooting and bad free throw, and 7 points, 4 boards, 2 assists.
He's learning the culture, dude. The shooting coach there said that he's not a bad shooter. He just takes bad shots.
I think both Moutier and Josh Hart should be viable throw-ins here.
Dude, he's not a bad shooter. He just takes bad shots. I want to get that like tattooed on my body.
Oh, dude, Josh Hart is amazing.
I'm gonna write that in like associate reviews from now on. What's that, Les?
Josh Hart. Double.
The Hawks don't have enough Lakers, dude.
Gabe, sell me on Josh Hart.
So he's like guaranteed to be in the league in 3 yees, which I think is good when you're evaluating a keeper.
Is he Isaiah Thomas handcuffs? What position does he play?
No.
He's like a PG SGSF. He's actually been double-doubling a bunch recently.
Sorry, he's a PG SGSF?
He's only SGSF. Fine. In Yahoo, he's only SGSF, but he on a couple nights ago he had 3 threes, 15 and 14 with no turnovers.
He actually had 3 consecutive double-doubles recently. 15 and 14.
All right,
14,
all right.
3 threes, 2 threes, 3 threes.
Lusky, so how far off from? So you rank your guys of your of Saric, Rozier, and Bam. How do you rank those 3?
Oh, I mean, Saric and Rozier aren't going anywhere as part of this deal.
But how far off?
Saric was just dealt in WCL for Durant. No joke.
What?
It was like
WCL so fucking stupid.
Yeah, it was really weird. There was a really bad deal that just went down.
What if I told you could have a player that is only 2 slots worse on Yahoo than Terry Rozier over the last 14 days?
Is that Bam?
That is Josh Hart.
Oh, Hart.
He's ranked 52nd over the last 2 weeks on Yahoo.
They're not gonna re-sign Isaiah Thomas, and they're not gonna get any good free agents this offseason. So Josh Hart's the future there.
He's like a locked-in good NBA player for the next 10 years, really.
Lusky, what would I need to take Bam out of the equation? What would I need to throw in to get Saric instead of?
That's not happening. It's not happening.
Bam's better than Saric.
Yeah.
I know. I'm saying I will throw in cash to
No,
offset
no, no. We're not doing
the
that. No. Dude, sorry, I'm keeping Sarge 3 years. This isn't even a discussion.
So basically, you want to like throw me your detritus. You want to throw me your trash with Bam, the guy you're not keeping for 3 years, to do the swap.
Well,
You're basically
look, I am telling you quite honestly that Bam probably will not get kept unless Whiteside gets moved. But I think that there's like a 40% chance that Whiteside gets moved.
What's Whiteside's contractual situation?
They're paying him the max, and he's terrible now. And they're going to find a way to move him. Remember, they got in a bidding war with Dallas, like everybody does. I'm telling you, like if you read Spoelstra's quotes, they're like he's like so everybody just likes to play with certain guys, and it's just about Bam.
I need some cash, man. Throw me some cash.
No, that's ridiculous.
Bam is ranked 173 over the last 30 days.
I've got a lot of guys ranked 173 over the last 30 days. Get that tattooed. Yeah, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it.
Man, when Whiteside gets dealt this all season, oh, the told you so is going to become so loud.
you'll have this.
But
podcast for
is it true?
Posterity.
Just answer this. Is it true that Bam is a better potential keeper than any LSL pick other than Dennis Smith Jr. from last year of the guys that are already in the NBA? Like he's better than Nicotina. He's better than Darren Fox, I think.
Like I would not trade Fox for Bam right now. Gabe, your objective. Would you? How do you evaluate Fox versus Bam right now?
I mean, what's Fox's keeper price? So Fox can only be kept 2 years, and he's on a contract at what, 15 or something?
He'd be 22, 32 if I kept him.
Yikes!
I think they're pretty close.
I mean, Fox starts and is like a know, but
there's a better chance that Fox is the face of the Kings in 2 years than there is that Bam is the face of the Heat.
Right.
Bam doesn't need to be the face. Bam doesn't need to be the face.
Right. I mean, yeah.
But like the Heat don't really mess around. When they get a lottery pick, like they're gonna develop the hell out of it. I think
I'd rather have Lonzo. I'd rather have Lonzo than Bam right now.
Yikes! Whoa!
I'd rather have Dennis Smith than Bam right now.
I said Dennis Smith. Dennis Smith's the obvious one, but I don't think anyone other than Dennis Smith. I mean, I really don't think anyone other than Dennis Smith is like a.
I'd rather have Josh Jackson, I think, than Bam right now. Josh Jackson's pretty fucking good. If you look at what my computer better. I'm getting my charger. He's been really good. Who else? Who are the other LSL guys? Malik Monk sucks. Who else?
And Nicotina.
Well, but what about all the? You mean guys who are already in the NBA?
Yeah. I'm saying the ones that already are.
But Lusky's point is that we suck at predicting who these guys are going to be. So I'm going to fuck up the fifth. He's going to say I'm going to fuck up the fifth pick. So I might as well.
That pick's terrible.
We know that Bam.
Bam's going to be better than the 5th or the 10th pick is my perspective. And he can be kept for 3 years.
Well, you should just keep him. I'm not. I like the 5th pick. I think there's some exciting. Right. I think I'm pretty excited about Kevin Knox. I'm not gonna lie. Anything else you guys want to cover before we wrap?
If you take Kevin Knox, then we should talk about a Bam for Knox deal.
We will. Gabe, you've been conspicuously quiet. Anything you want to add?
I'm just disappointed.
Me too.
I am too. But Lusky was being unreasonable.
I just remember the words are going to come back to haunt you. Instant accept every Lusky offer. Guaranteed. Bam. It's going to be amazing now.
All right. Good pod, gentlemen. Sleep well. Talk to you guys soon. And we'll do this again before too much time passes UFBL. Sorry to have let so much time pass before the last one. Good night, guys.
Good night.